We are on the front lines of a very important battle. And it's important that we aren't silenced, that we aren't put down. This is not a time to bend our heads in despair or out of fear that we may be next, because if we do not speak up, if we do not step out, it will be your city that is next.
That was Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, who, as we mentioned earlier, is in Washington, D.C. today, where he addressed the U.S. Conference of Mayors. Yesterday, in the latest installment of our Finding Common Ground series, I spoke with a bipartisan pair of mayors about the current tensions in Minneapolis and the many challenges facing mayors all across the country. Joining me now is Republican Mayor David Holt of Oklahoma City and president of the Conference of Mayors, and Democratic Mayor Todd Gloria of San Diego and vice president of the Conference of Mayors. Thanks so much to both of you for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Well, a lot to get to. I do want to start with this crisis that we're seeing in Minneapolis. And Mayor Holt, I want to ask you about this statement that the Conference of Mayors put out. You write, quote, "The nation's mayors call for immediate intervention by national leaders to de-escalate the situation in Minnesota. This is not a partisan issue. It is an issue of national concern." Are you satisfied at this very moment, as we sit here, that national leaders are doing enough to de-escalate the crisis?
Well, interesting question. And so we put that out, of course, Saturday, right after the second death of a resident in Minneapolis. And, you know, with the input of Democrats and Republicans and independents, as well as mayors in the Minnesota delegation. So I think we're cautiously encouraged that, you know, there seems to be some personnel changes. There seems to be reporting. You know, we're not necessarily privy to the inner workings of the White House, but we're reading the news reports like everybody else that seem to imply there's a pivot happening. And yeah, so I mean, I think we need to remain vigilant, but it is certainly our position that what was happening in Minneapolis was unacceptable. And what was great was when our statement went out, it seemed like there were similar statements kind of from all kinds of organizations and all kinds of elected officials across the partisan spectrum. Yeah. And it became really a chorus that was organic and not, you know, not anything that anyone was collaborating on. Because it was just common sense that this had become absolutely unacceptable.
Mayor Gloria, pick up on that point, if you would. You talk about some of the personnel changes. Of course, President Trump did send Tom Homan to be in charge of everything that's happening in Minneapolis. What do you make of that move? Do you think it will help to de-escalate tensions there?
Well, it does provide a milestone that, you know, maybe makes space for some change, which is obviously necessary. President Holt and I have had an opportunity to meet with Mayor Frey from Minnesota, and, you know, it's clear that something has to happen, and if that helps to move things along, great. But, you know, from what we hear from our colleagues from Minnesota is that the conditions continue to be extremely dire, and it seemingly is worse than what we kind of get from the media, and as a consequence, more will need to come. But as President Holt mentioned, there's at least an indication of a shift coming, and that should be encouraging, but we can't be satisfied until we get back to some level of law and order that we come to expect on our streets.
Yeah, we need action, and we need, you know, things on the ground to change, not just the right things being said in Washington. But it's okay. We can give it a little bit of time. But
you take me to my next question, which is about the leadership that we're seeing in Minneapolis. You talked about Mayor Frey. Mayor Gloria, what do you make of his leadership in this moment? We've seen some really tense comments, both from Mayor Frey, of course, from the administration, the president. What do you make of Mayor Frey's leadership right now?
Well, I know him, and I know him to be a very even-keeled and very thoughtful leader. And so that first initial statement, you know, that he got some criticism for. But what I know from my job is that we're often in the position of being the personification of the city, to be the voice of your residents. And what is evident is that there's tremendous emotion, lots of fear. And I think he was emoting that. And by doing so, I think that helps to actually let the populace know that their mayor understands and is feeling what they're feeling and expressing that on their behalf. I hope that that provides some level of reassurance to the populace that needs that right now. He's a very good leader, and I think he's doing the best he can under very difficult circumstances. I'd say the same for his police chief.
Mayor Holt, I want to talk a little bigger picture now about both of your communities. One of the biggest issues facing all Americans coast to coast, the issue of affordability and the economy. It's obviously been a top issue on the campaign trail. It's going to be front and center in 2026 in the midterms. How do you see your role as mayor? Are there things that you can do, actionable items that you can tackle to address that issue for your constituents?
Well, quite possibly. And, I think like different cities and different states might come at this from a slightly different ideological perspective and have different solutions, but we all sort of have an idea. And so coming from a place like Oklahoma and Oklahoma City, I think we think of it in terms, first of all, housing, which is the largest single cost in anyone's life. What can we do to address that? And of course, that's our number one issue here in Washington as mayors, but we're also doing things on the local level to work towards that. And of course, we work towards, higher paying jobs. We have a whole economic development team. That's what mayors and cities often do, are out there recruiting higher paying jobs to raise the median income in our city. So I think that's how probably a mayor of Oklahoma City looks at the affordability issue. Different cities may come at it from a different angle, but I think the biggest thing for me right now is what can we do both at the local and national level on housing?
Mayor Gloria, how do you see it?
I couldn't agree more about the housing piece. We talk understandably about gas prices and grocery prices, but it is housing that I hear the most from my constituents about. And this is often from people who have good jobs and are working extremely hard, but don't see a future for themselves in my city. As a mayor, I control permitting, I control zoning, and when I can create more opportunities for people to live in a housing they can actually afford, that is tackling the affordability crisis. In my city, we've gone from an average of about 4,400 new home permits per year for the last 2 decades. We're knocking on about 10,000 a year, and that increase in production is driving down costs.
And just finally, to both of you, what is your message to lawmakers here in Washington about how they might better reach across the aisle to work together, particularly in this moment where the country is incredibly divided?
Well, I think we do have a little bit of something to say about that. We're living it right here. I mean, we work together in our cities, within our cities. No city is a monolith in terms of its ideology, right? We both have, he's got Republicans in his city, I've got Democrats at mine, and we work with them, and then we work together amongst ourselves as mayors. We've got Republicans, Democrats, and independents in our organization, and when you go to the press conference where we all talk, you probably couldn't even figure out who was who. And I kind of think that's the way it should be. And I will tell you, too much to get into on the air, but I'm telling your viewers, go Google the Oklahoma City Declaration, which over 230 mayors have signed, that talks about the basic behaviors that people in our positions need to be engaged in and how we embrace compromise and pluralism. That's what people up here could learn from us. I love talking about the issues, but I think we need to talk just as much about how we do things, and we do things right as mayors.
Well, I think a lot of people agree with you, Mayor Gloria. What is your message to that point?
Well, I love working in a bipartisan fashion. We definitely need that. And I think why mayors do that better than perhaps others is that we can't allow partisanship to be an excuse for not getting something done. The garbage got picked up this week or it didn't. Water came to your house or did not. Someone got to your door when you called 911 or they didn't. We can't allow party to be the excuse for why we don't see progress. It doesn't work for mayors. I don't think it works at the state or national level either. And we can't allow it to be an excuse. We've got to get stuff done for the people of this country.
All right. Mayor Gloria, Mayor Holt, thank you both so much for a fantastic conversation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kristen.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.